Now, it's a bit of a myth that you will get your data in exactly the right format that you need. It doesn't happen, unfortunately. So let's have a look at this data. So this is pivot table HP admins 2. It's exactly the same as the previous pivot table that we were looking at, but with one exception. In addition to the region name, we've also got the area. So we've still got date going down. We've still got sum of sales volume in the middle, but going across we have got area as well as region name, and we've got subtotals. So let's transform this data and unpivot it. So at the end, what we want are 4 columns. We want the date, we want the area, we want the region name, and we want the sales volume. So let's see how we can do that. Now we'll be doing that by having the use of 2 things that we had to look at a few videos again, but didn't really use. I said we'll be using them later. Well, now is the later. So I'm going to get my Power BI data, and I'm going to get the pivot HPI admins 2 and click transform data. So that gets me to this Power Query editor. So again, get rid of change type, get rid of promoted headers. We want to see the original data. Now we don't need this top line, so this top line can go. So we go to home, remove rows, 1 row. Now let's just have a look at the data we've got. So we have got South Yorkshire, Tyne and Wear, West Yorkshire. They are all part of the north. And so what we want is north, north, north. Now you may remember that we have a transform function, and I'll just expand this so we can see all of the words. We have a transform function called fill, and I told you that fills cells from non-empty cells into empty ones. So that sounds like what we need. We want north to trickle to the right, and then northwest can trickle to the right, and so forth. So therefore, all we need to do is highlight this row and, we can't fill. Okay, well, we'll just click on a cell and click fill. Where? Right. Okay, there isn't a right. There's only an up and a down. Okay, that really seems to stop that. Except it doesn't quite. What we can do is flip this entire table around. We can transpose it. So instead of things going from west to east, from left to right, they will go from up to down, exactly how we needed it. So let us now fill down. Now I don't actually have to click on any particular things. Let's click on the grand total, just because it's there. So I fill down, and you can see that where there was null, we now have what's immediately above it. So let's just have a view of that again. We have some nulls, and when we use transform fill, it fills down, removing the nulls. Now in column 2, we've got some nulls, that's why we have the totals. So now let's replace the values. So replace value. So I want to replace a null, which you can actually just type in NULL, just treat it like a string, and I'm going to call that subtotal. So click OK, and now all these nulls are replaced with the word subtotal. What I'm going to do now is retranspose it, so it's back to where we were, except now we've got all of this filled in, and just have a look at where we are. We have got 1 date going down, and we've got 2 fields going across. Now, can we unpivot and have 2 fields as the answer? Well, let's just try it. So let's just highlight column 1 as the one that's staying, and we're going to unpivot over columns, and you can see the answer is it's not that good. This attribute is what the column is. And currently, if I get rid of that step, the column is column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5, and so forth. So I could use the first row as a header, but there's nothing that says use the first 2 rows as a header. So doesn't quite work. So instead, what I'm going to do is not transpose it. I'm going to leave it like this way. So now we have two fields going down and one field going across. Can that work in an unpivot? The answer is yes, as long as we promote row 1 upwards. So let's promote row 1 upwards. So we use first row's header. Let's rename column 1 and date, which isn't date now. So this is area and this is region name. And now we highlight these two columns and we unpivot the other columns. And now we have got the date and we have got the sales volume. So let's just talk through all of these steps again. First of all, we started off with this data with area in row 2 and region name in row 3. We then removed the top row, we transposed it, so we now have area and region name as columns. We filled down, removing all of these nulls. We replaced the null with the word subtotal. We promoted the headers so that these date were right to the top. So instead of it being called column 3, it was now called the 1st of January 1995. The computer automatically changed the type, that was fine. We named the columns, the first two, area and region names, so that made sense, and then we unpivoted the other columns and we renamed the columns. So this is how you can deal with an unpivot where there is more than one field going across. More than one field going down, well, generally you have the same problem as before. So you have the problem where you've got all of these nulls. So you have a heading and then some data going down. Well, you can then just use the fill function to go down. And it's at this stage that you can now do your transformations. In fact, one other transformation I would do is this date column. It is still text. I will change it to an actual date. And then we can close and apply and do boot our dashboards as before. So the next video, I'm going to give you some different data, and I'd like you to unpivot that data as well. Finally, there was an interesting error that came up when I tried to save this. It said that there were 10 rows with errors in them. Now, can you think under what circumstances we could have an error? I'll give you a clue. It's in the date column. And if I keep scrolling down, and I do have to keep scrolling down to find it, here we can see our first error. And you can see it's where there was a subtotal, where we put the word subtotal, but now it's a date. So now let's replace these errors. So that is this one up here. Replace errors. And what is the value that will replace the errors? I'm going to put the word null in. Because it's a date, I can't just have some text. It's got to actually be something which is allowed in a date field. So I'm going to put null, just click OK, and scroll down again, and you'll see that we now have these subtotals with nulls. So the question is whether you actually do want to have these subtotals in. You could argue that it's duplicating the data and therefore it's dangerous to have in because you'll have sold 817,000 units across the West Midlands, and then you've got it for each of the year, so it's doubling the data. So that's generally how I feel, to be honest. And so if I want to remove it, easiest way, right and click on it, date filters, does not equal. And that gets rid of the nulls. So again, if I scroll down, it's no longer there. So it's equivalent to typing in the word null in the filter rows. Right, let's have a look at the practice.